in here, we're our full selves, but this is what I want to show to the rest of the world, right? So that's super important, because you also want to, again, cultural competency. It is learned, right? None of us are born with this level of all cultures, all experiences. So we have to have those experiences where we're sharing our culture, we're sharing our values, we're saying, hey, this is important to me, this is important to my family. It might not be important to the person across the street, but to us, this is super important, this is super valuable to us. And I think I want to make it clear that we're creating safe spaces. So people of color exist in this space. People of different sexual orientations exist in this space. Able-bodied versus non-able-bodied exist in this space, right? But we can all be allies to each other.
I think our role as designers maybe is for us to work with them, because I think as a College of Architecture and being like a school that has a really involved college that has a lot of different majors in it and like have a lot of active people in it, I think one thing that becomes important as our field is becoming more interdisciplinary is that we're working with more people. So I think, kind of as a way to outsource work but also to keep us involved is if we reach out to organizations on campus like the multicultural centers or the cross-cultural centers and say, hey, we are a group of designers, we want to start this dialogue not just in terms of social space but in physical space as well. How can we as designers help further something? And I think it's
talking about safe spaces and like how sacred that is, and how it's kind of like for a lot of underrepresented groups, it's kind of like your one place to go where you feel like fully accepted. Kind of like creating that space, but also sort of letting in the rest of the community to kind of peek in, or kind of like this sort of buffer zone where they can kind of communicate, because there needs to be that communication, but I think there also needs to be sort of like you were saying, like a.
In terms of like designing for healing, we talked about creating safe spaces and like how there's a variety of things that go into that, like creating spaces that are physically safe versus like emotionally safe, and promoting authentic conversations that are like receptive to like the tensions that are existing, and like letting those tensions like build and then resolve themselves instead of just like ignoring them.
That like, because there is a lack of diversity in Cal Poly, it kind of makes it hard to want to share your background and your experiences, and it's also hard to find people of, similar backgrounds and to kind of be vulnerable in that way and to expose your personal truths. But yeah, I think having a mentor and having a mentor would like make it or like facilitate, feeling more comfortable at Cal Poly, and would help foster a greater sense of community for those that may not feel super welcomed here.
One thing we identified that was super important as well is we don't need to invent the wheel, we can improve on it. Because there's already so many things on campus and so many diversity initiatives happening. How do we as designers enter that space and aid in that? Because there's organizations on campus like the multicultural centers, the cross-cultural centers, that are trying to answer these same questions as we are here today, but how do we get to come in and help define this space for them? So we've been here to talk about if there are these marginalized groups of people of color on campus, how do we upsell them? How do we uplift them using our capabilities as creators of designers of space? And so we talked about how if we have these different spheres of design we see, how can we integrate them into one thing? And so we also got on that pavilion track and exhibit kind of discussion, where we're saying if there is some physical thing that sits out there, if it's a structure, if it's an exhibit, it's a pavilion, that is not culturally coded, and as a group wants to use it, they can add their culture, their influence, what they want to it, they can start to build their experience around it.
We were creating kind of a sort of safe space that exists with like a defining boundary that like reaches out to the general population. So there's kind of the idea of like the general population gets to kind of look in and appreciate the space and get closer, but then there still remains that specific space for those people to feel fully comfortable and safe.
I think the root of our conversation really fell toward this idea of ignorance and how do you combat ignorance, because I think we think that most of the problems we have today is due to innate ignorance, and not because people are trying to be bad people, it's just they don't know any better. And so how can you rectify that? And so with our plan, we've got tons of different ways of combating that. How can you create a classroom environment that encourages collaboration, encourages multiple people getting their ideas out there, getting their input out there? You can actually hear the voices and opinions of a wide range of people that then educates you. You now know more about the situation and can then put your own experiences and context into that. And on top of that, this idea of exit courses that you have to take in order to graduate from the school, which force you to be collaborative and engaging with people from other majors, whether that be in CAED or on the campus as a whole.
I want to connect it with this wonderful design question, which is how do we create a safe space? Because it's not just physical space, right, of course, and it's interpersonal. Somehow right now, I think we've made the KTGY into a safe space. I feel like right now it's really an amazing thing. So I hope that's a question we can keep having together, is how do we create a safe space? And connecting with what you're sharing is how do we bring other people into that space, right? So it's not just us.
2,000 students in this college. And when one student comes and asks for advocacy, I ask myself, is this 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100? Is this 1 out of 800? But this is the one who feels they can come and talk to us. And I wish that more of you did, because we are here to help. And we don't have the same vision on the ground you do. I've got only one set of eyes. I can only see what I only have 24 hours in a day. But when I multiply that by all of us, it's really, really significant. Come and tell us. You may have a problem we can't solve, but we could talk through it. We can solve a lot of them.